This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so this is going to be part 3 of the Atletico defense. Go back and watch parts 1 and 2 as well. It's in the playlist. So let's go over to you guys still see this screen, right? Okay. So 1 second. So this is where we left off the previous week, where we just saw that this is the back line, and you can see that the two center backs covering the opposing 9 are close together, which makes sense, right? But then you notice that unlike the midfield line, which will be more compact, that the fullbacks are split out almost in a man marking type of situation. So it's very Leeds-like, which is the previous defense we ran in the fall, where they're going to be very close to them, ready to step on them and not let them turn, right? The primary goal is to steal the ball if the ball is played to a winger. Our fullback is supposed to try to steal it, number 1. Number 2, don't let them turn. Or number 3, if you've allowed him to turn, contain him and don't let him dribble past you. So that's your hierarchy. Try to steal. If it's on, don't let him turn. If you can't steal, if you can't do either, if you reacted too slow or something happened, don't make it worse by lunging, just contain. Okay. All right. So that was last week. So we're going to go to the next slide. So this is, you'll see now the ball's on the sideline. And this is typical of any defense. This is not groundbreaking for people who played the game for a while. You can see that we're bracketing the 9 because they only have 1 striker. So why not, right? So we're bracketing the 9. And you'll see that our fullback is split way. Look at this gap. We're going to get into later on how we control this space. Later on, it's going to have to do with the 6 and the 8, you'll see. But that's not what we're concerned about right now. We're dealing with the back line. In the previous tacticals, session 1 and session 2, part 1 and part 2, we deal with the forward line and the midfield line. So now we're dealing with the back line. So this is a big gaping hole, but we have ways to handle that. So this is their outside mid or their winger, and this is their fullback. You can see we're right on them when their fullback has the ball. We are stepped up so that if the ball is played to their winger, we can steal, number 1. Number 2, don't let them turn. Number 3, just contain them, okay? Now, you see if their 9 starts to slide over, which is going to happen, right? What do? We slide our center backs with him. We don't allow him to just go in there, right? So if the 9 goes into that space, we have a mechanism to handle that, okay? We just slide everybody over, both center backs, okay? And you can see that when that does happen, our right back also comes in more, right? Because this way he can help out if there's any problems. And you see that he doesn't need, this ball is this is a 70, this could be upwards of a 60-yard pass, right? So you have plenty of time to get over. So you don't, keep in mind that our ball side player is going to be tight. Our ball side fullback is going to be tight, but the far side fullback does not need to be that tight, okay? All right, so we're going to go to the next slide. I think that's all pretty obvious. Any questions? Are we good so far? We're going to do some interaction in a second, but I don't think there's any need for that right now. Okay, now you can see that the ball is in the middle now with their 6. Okay, so this is one of their central midfielders, center defensive mid, and you can see what they're describing here is the wingers have tucked in. This could be more of a 4-2-3-1, where the wingers are tucked in more, right? So of course we're not going to put our fullbacks on the opposite side of them. So what do our fullbacks do? They come in more, which will remind you of Leeds, which is this is similar to man marking, right? They're following the winger or the outside mid around, right? If the 11 were to go out, we would go out more, right? Okay, we would go out more. If the 11 went out here, we would go out more, like this slide. Okay, show back here, right? If the 11 were to go out, see, we follow him just like we do when we play Leeds. Okay. And there's videos on all the lead stuff on the playlist too, for those who are new here. I'll post it all back up for you. So you can see this all makes sense, right? Atletico plays a lot like Leeds on their back line. I said it before, Diego Simeone played for Marcel Bielsa, who coaches Leeds. So it's also standard that the back line will play more of a man marking in any system, any tactical system out there. Because the closer you get to the goal, you have to be closer to the player, where you could play more of a zone against the opposing back line. But you have to watch man marking against the opposing forward. You can't give them space. So pretty standard stuff. Okay. Here's the situation where we now are facing two strikers. We talk about that a lot. You have two strikers. What do? When we played Leeds, we were man marking. So we always had a free man, right? So we would place that free man here, right? The way that, and we would still have our fullbacks here. So we would actually drop another player in. If we were playing Leeds right now, we would actually drop another player right where my little cursor is, right? Because we'd have man mark here, man mark here, man mark here, man mark here. We would have our free man, right? The way Atletico handles that, this is basically a 4v4. It's what I told you not to do when we play Leeds, right? But the way Atletico handles it is, without having to drop in yet their 6 or their 8 to help out, if you notice what they do is, yes, they have man marking here and man marking here. So that's a 2v2. You don't want a 2v2. But if you look at their fullbacks are not all the way up against the winger like you would see here. Or let me go to one where it's in the middle, right? The fullback comes in. So I like to describe this for you guys as a free man and a half a free man. So the fullbacks are now operating as like a half a free man in Leeds. Because we have a 2v2 here in the middle, they come in and they're like not so tightly marking their man. So they're kind of like a half a free man each, equal to one free man. It's, if you want to think of it that way. Okay. So that's how they handle the overload, because you don't ever want to be pure 2v2. And because that's always a disadvantage. So this is not 2v2. This is, like I said, a half a free man each, right? Sorry, Bernie, you can't come in. My dog. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Any questions on that, or does that make sense?
When the strikers cross over, are you holding your space or following your man?
So in this, you're going to hold your space. Our new defense, which I need everyone to understand, we are running a different defense now. We will run at the front more so Leeds when we're pressing. So we don't waste the fact that we learned that the whole year. There's a reason for that. That's our high press now. So when we go to press the other team, we're going to run Leeds. But then as soon as they break our press, we're going to drop into Atletico. So pretty much the back line is, almost always going to be running Atletico. So yes, you do what you would traditionally have done. You just hold. Does that make sense? That's what you're asking, right, Josh?
Yeah, unless someone gets beat, then I guess you have to compromise and move into their space.
Yeah.
So if a center back is beat by a striker,
well, the good news is we're going to get in the next couple of slides. They're going to deal with all those situations that you're talking about. So that's actually good. But I know your general question, because we played Leeds last in the fall. We would have had you follow him, as we say, if he went to take I put this on kid friendly, or no kids on, not youth. So if he goes to take a shit, you follow him, right? So, but in this, we're not. You just release him, just like you would do when the normal zone you probably always played. So I think, okay, that answers the question, right? For that part.
Yeah, I mean, it's situational, obviously, because if they're in our third and the striker beats a center back, I'm not going to hold my winger. I'm going to try to attack the striker. Otherwise, it's a free shot.
Let's see if it's answered on these next slides, how to handle when there's a ball played. Because let's see if we can. So as we see here, this very next slide here, you'll see that this is still facing two strikers, right? A 9 and 10, the 10 pushed up. So now it's on, this is the ball side. So our fullback is going to tightly mark there, okay? Because now he has to, it's ball side. The ball's not in the middle anymore, right? So we are going to we're going to step on that outside mid / winger, right? But because we're still kind of man marking here, because there's 2 strikers, we are going to play a little more conservative. So this particular player is going to take a goal side position. He's going to be very careful not to try to intercept any balls, because he's really going to just try to contain at this point. And then we can create a defensive triangle, which you'll see in a second. So goal side, this guy is not goal side. Okay. He does have help, because you see that the left back, right, has really come in to help out. So it's almost like we have a +1. We have 2 man markers, but the +1 in Leeds, we would try to put the +1 kind of right here. But Atletico doesn't do all that extra running. They just shift the line like you would traditionally do in the zone that most of you probably played. Okay, so this should all be very intuitive if you've played on the back line before. So the left back slides in. Okay, so he's there if a ball goes aerial. So, but I need you to notice the goal side positioning here. But then this guy's not goal side, because that would mean we have, if number 2 here, the left side at center back. If he was on this side, we'd have the left side at center back and the left back both on the wrong side. So that's not good, right? So they're kind of bracketing the 10, right? Okay. Now you can see if a ball is played to the 9, we move to contest from behind, right? We want to just contain here. We're not trying to go for the steal. We can easily contain this. It's going to be a lot of times an aerial ball. Can anybody tell me why most times if we do our job, this will be an aerial ball? Who can tell me why? Because of if we do our job defensively that we're teaching right now, why will this most likely be an aerial ball? Anybody?
It would only be able to go on the sideline if we force them to the outsides.
Because in the earlier tacticals for Atletico, we talk about this is exactly, if this is their fullback, the outside right mid of ours should be sitting where? Right about here. See it? So where my cursor is, everybody can see that, right? Let me just let Meech in. So the ball to the feet is off. So a ball in the air is, everybody knows if you play defense long enough, you know, it's really is, if it's in front of you, it's just easier to defend because you have more time because it takes longer to get there. Whereas a hard pass to the feet, sometimes it's tougher to defend, right? So that's why we specifically, this is where we would be sitting, just like this. There's our fullback, goal side and back of their winger, and our outside mid would be like right here. Okay. All right. So, okay. Sound good there? Now, one more thing. So notice, and this is what a mistake a lot of players make. You see the right center back stepping to the 9 when the ball's played in the air. And notice what the right back and the left center back and the left back do. Do they rush to the ball or do they drop back in to support, to be in a coverage role, right? So you notice they don't run sideways at the 9 at the ball, right? Okay, too many players that are bad defenders run straight at where the ball is going. And now if there's a deflection or a flick on, we're dead in the water. So you notice what they do. They do come towards the ball, but they go back and they create what we call a defensive triangle. So at the point of confrontation where we're contesting the ball, our right center back is contesting the ball. Even if he fails, he now has 2 players behind him. The worst case scenario is the 9 plays a pass out to the wing, but we still have him contained. Now we just step out to him. Okay, so do not run. You've heard me yell this before too, just in general. Don't run sideways to contest anything. Don't run from the side. Like, you're better off not challenging at all at that point. Just get back and goal side and contain. Because okay, so this is we call this a defensive triangle. So you're going to hear us talk about this. If we fail at this in a game, like the game Sunday, we're going to discuss this in tactical. That look, there was an opportunity for us to. The player did the right thing, but then that was marking the player, but then the other players did not create the defensive triangle. So the ball was a flick on and we got scored on. We don't want to have that conversation, but that's, hopefully something we're going to avoid, and we're going to learn to avoid that. Does that make sense what I just showed there, the defensive triangle?
I was wondering, is there a potential for the fullback to double team since it's in the air and it'll give him time to anticipate it?
So the only danger of that is if it fails and we deploy 2 players, if it fails, you could be looking at the white 7 with, let's say he steps over, right? 20 steps in. This, if it's a flick on this way, you could be looking at a problem. So I would say the way we're going to play is very safe. Let the one player contest. We do apply double marking, as you'll see, and we're going to get into that even more from the midfield. But this is a situation where the fullback shouldn't apply double marking. And I know we're big on double marking, but not from the back line. The back line gets helped by the midfield line the majority of the time to double mark, which we'll get into. I don't want to confuse people who didn't see the first tacticals, but we will get to double marking in a second probably. So does that answer your question? That could be dangerous. It could, if it works, it's great. But the reality is we don't need to steal the ball here. Our center backs have to be good enough to not let that guy turn. Can we all agree with that? Like, our center backs have to be good enough to not let. Everybody knows that a ball in the air is more difficult to control for a striker, correct, than a ball at the feet. So if our center back can't control that, we're in trouble anyway, right? Everybody agree with that? So you can wrap your head around why I'm saying this, that like we have to be able to control that with one player, a ball in the air. We follow me there? Yes, no?
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. So we're gonna play conservative when that happens, and we're gonna drop behind the ball, and this way we're gonna allow our right center back to fail or not fail. But if he fails, we're there to pick up the pieces. If he succeeds, all the power to him. We only needed to deploy one player. So let it go. At this point, they breached us. And this is a pass that we kind of almost allow. We do want to step. If this pass gets off, it's because our outside mid was a little too slow to apply pressure. Because remember, to send an aerial ball from a fullback, you do have to have a little bit of space and time, right, to really step into it, right? So these balls shouldn't be played. We shouldn't face a lot of these balls, even though we should be stepping fast enough to stop an aerial ball, right? So when they do get one off, we want to make sure that they don't score off of it, that we just neutralize it, okay? Any other questions on that one, or this is going to be the next slide, which you'll see that we're going to deal with a few more positionings, okay? I think we're good there for now. We're not even done with this, but there's going to be more to the back line. So now we're looking at it's very subtle positioning here that we're not going to get all this down. I need you guys to study this because there's a lot of nuance here that will make you a better defender if you understand these things. So here we have ball in the center. And if you look at the positioning of the 10, they're calling this a deep positioning, which means he's not close to us. And you can see the next one where he's in more advanced, a little closer, right? And it's just very subtle, the differences. As he's further away, notice the positioning of the fullbacks, right? They're not what I call playing a free man, a half a free man, right? Because they're not playing with 2 strikers because the striker is where? He's in a recessed position or they refer to as deeper. Sometimes I think deeper is closer to our line, but for them it's deeper, closer to the ball, not closer to our goal, right? Compared to here. So we don't need the half a free man from the fullbacks. The fullbacks can can mark. So the fullbacks actually have to watch the 10. If the fullbacks get advanced enough, they're going to look at the opposing 10 and say, and adjust their position accordingly, right? And now look, the 10 starts to move up. So what happens? Our fullbacks recognize that, and they basically become a half a free man. Okay, so here they treat the 10 as if he's not even there. They treat it like a single high striker. When there's a single high striker, we have him double teamed, right? We have him double marked with a marker and a free man basically, and he's bracketed because the 10 is not in a dangerous spot. He's far enough away from our back line, so we get closer to the outside players so that we can step on them in the event that a ball is played out. If the 10 starts to advance, we consider it a two striker situation. So our fullbacks come in to each be a half a free man. So I kind of repeated that, but I want to make that clear. Is there any questions on that, or does that make sense? Good? I'm kind of relying on Josh at this point to answer yes or no, I guess.
Yeah, I
He's a
mean,
fullback,
it
but
happens in a
everyone
blink of an eye as far as seeing these nuances. So it's something it's difficult to know in the
difficult.
moment. It's more in
No,
retrospect you see.
I'm not expecting. Yeah, so I'm not expecting this to happen Sunday. Okay, the reason I'm showing this is a blueprint for like this could take weeks, months, years. Okay, but the club's not going anywhere, right? So we want this to be kind of instilled, if that makes sense, part of our DNA, part of our culture, that we know how to play, advanced tactics, even if it takes a long time. Maybe our senior team players will play it before our B team players and C team and so on down the line, right? So we just want to be aware of it. It's something we're working towards. This is not something I expect. There'll be a few things that I expect us to do Sunday. This is not one of them, but it would be nice for one of our advanced. I'm a teacher as well. You guys know that. One of our advanced students can start to pull this off. I'll be very impressed. All right. Okay. So I think we covered this enough, right? We understand what's going on here, right? The 10 moved forward. So we came in and we're going to refer to that as a half a free man, right?
Who's calling out these transitions? Is it the keeper, center back?
So
I could recognize it myself, but if they're telling me something different than what my instincts say, I'll just listen to them.
Yeah, you always got to listen to the guy behind you. And so I mean, at the end of the day, defensively, you got to listen to the guy behind you, right? Because so we hope to get everyone intelligent enough about our tactics, where they're not telling you the wrong thing. But yes, this could be recognized this really should be recognized by the fullback themselves, right? So that the center back doesn't have to call you over. For me, that's ideal. And you guys know I'm a big believer in communication, but it's less stress on the center backs if they don't have to call that out, and on the keeper, right? We want communication, but the left back in this situation, which is what Josh plays, right? So he could just be watching. He can almost treat this like a 2v1. Right here, you can see I got a 1v1. And then the way Josh could think of this, because everyone has a different mental way they can think of things. So right now, Josh could think, I have a 1v1. This guy's not close enough. But if he starts to move up, he could say, you know what? This is starting to look like a 2v1. So what do we do in a 2v1? We drop. So that's one way to think of it, is just keep your eye on your, Josh will keep his eye on his winger that he's covering and marking, but he's also keeping an eye on the opposing 10 and seeing if he's going to try to make a run into that gap. And then so that's another way to think of it. You're just thinking of it like a simple 2v1 where you're facing a 2v1, you drop. Okay. So ideally the fullback sees it first, because then he can react quicker. And if the fullback doesn't see it, then the keeper or the center back should be yelling out. If the center back's sitting here and the center back's saying, I'm not really worried about the 10, but I'm watching him, and he's helping bracket the 9. But then as the center back sees the 10 move down, he's going to yell, yo, Josh, get over. Josh, come on. Come close. Tuck in, right? Because he doesn't like the fact that he's 1v1 right now. Okay. I don't, no center back should always not want to be 1v1. A good center back can play 1v1, but they call in help so they don't have to, right? They don't have to make the spectacular tackle, right? They direct, like Josh is saying, communication, who's going to call out. They direct the players around them to help them so that they don't have to make that spectacular tackle. You see a center back making tackle after tackle, he's probably not an intelligent player. You're making too many tackles. Okay. Any questions on that? We want to move on to the next one. Okay, let me move here. Let me just do something here.
Nice.
Okay. So sorry about that. So now we're looking at a situation where, again, this is they're just giving you a different formation, 4-2-3-1. Okay. So 4-2-3-1, there's your 3 across, your 7, your 10, your 11, right? And then you have your 9 up top. Okay. Again, the fullback has the ball. The fullback against Atletico, when we play Atletico, their fullback's going to have the ball a lot. Okay. So again, here we are. The 10 is what they call deep position. So he's not at our back line yet. He's not in what's an advanced position. He's not advanced towards our back line. So at that time, everything should make sense here. He's doing his job because it's ball side. He's going to try to prevent him from maybe get a steal, prevent from turning, number 2, and number 3, contain. Okay. And then we talked about this earlier. The 9 appears to have slid over, right? So what do? Because the 10 is in a deep position, not close to us yet, both of our center backs can slide over with the 9 to double mark the 9. And then you'll see the left back is kind of trying to control the 7, and he's in a position where if this ball was sent, he could, along with the 2, come in to stop the 10. Okay. He's deep enough that that's not a problem right now, right? They have enough time to do that. Does that make sense? Or is there any questions on that? So we step because it's ball side. There's only a single striker, so we double bracket, and the far side fullback tucks in to an appropriate spot where he can control the outside mid or wing. But why is he tucking in? I mean, let's face facts. He's tucking in because he needs to be there if the 10 does move. Let's keep that in mind, right? Okay. He's going to be, like we talked about on the last slide, he's aware of where the 10 is. He should be looking at both sides and scanning left side, and central, because he might have to control this 10 on a run. Does that make sense?
I assume like
Good.
before, if the 10 goes up higher, then the right center back needs to be goal side on the 9 versus how he is right now.
So if the 10 goes this way or this way, Josh?
Goes towards the goal.
Goes towards our goal?
Yep.
If he goes towards our goal, then it becomes, so let's we have an answer for that from the other slides. I'll just show a picture of it. So okay, this is literally the same situation, right? There's the 9 slid over. So that's, I think, exactly what Josh was saying. The left center back does what in that scenario? He doesn't double bracket anymore. And matter of fact, look what the right center back does. Okay, so this all has to be coordinated because now we have 2 strikers. So when we have 2 strikers, ball's on the sideline, we get goal side with our front center back, right? And the back one will help. Well, basically, I look at this as like a bracketing with the left back and the left center back. They're basically bracketing the 10 with, they're each doing what we call, a job and a half, right? So he's man marking. Let's make no mistake about it, right? He's man marking. So these guys are doing one job, right? Right back, right center back. But this guy is marking the 10, right? But he's also there to support the right center back, right? And the left back is still aware of the outside mid like we do in Leeds, but he's also doing a job and a half that if the ball was sent over, he's there to bracket. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I think that's what Josh was asking. And this is going to listen. This is going to take a while to coordinate this, and we will practice this. We'll implement things to practice this during as we go through. So did I go too far, or no? We're good. So this is the slide we were on, and that answer. That's what Josh was getting at, is that if he moved forward, he would slide back, right? He would slide on the other side, and he would drop over a little bit, right? The two would go over, right? The right center back would go over, and he would flip sides. Okay. And you can see the 10 is in a deep position. So at that point we had the 9 double marked, right? Because look how far the 10 is. He's far enough away. So we weren't worried about the 10. We were aware of him. We were tracking his movements, but and now the ball. Remember our right center back, because there was double marking, right? Because he was bracketed. Look how much more aggressive he can be, right? Because he was in a situation where here, see, he knows that no one's worried about the 10 right now. We're just keeping an eye on him. So he can go, look, he's not goal side right now. So he's looking to step in front. Again, subtle, but important. You're tracking the movements of the 10. That's why the 10 on most teams has to be, the playmaker. The 10 can. So if any of you guys are attacking midfielders, you should be taking notes on this as well, right? Look how much trouble this 10 can cause just by moving a little bit up and down, right? Okay. So like I said before, learning how a defense operates will help your offense. Okay. So yeah, so we see that because the 10's nowhere to be found. Okay, he never made a run forward. Okay. Very simple to cover. This is very simple. We can be extremely aggressive, and because we had support, we had a free man essentially. We have in Leeds. We can be extremely aggressive, and then we still drop into a defensive triangle, and the left back drops in as well, just like we saw on previous slides, right? And now they're showing you that, if the ball was played over the top of the 9, where they were trying to get the 9 to run onto it, well, the left center back, who was providing like a free man, is able to track that down. So everyone's familiar with that from our Leeds, right? Where in this instance, the left center back is essentially a free man. If they're only playing with one striker, we're basically going to have the 2 center backs are going to take turns essentially being a free man if they only play with one striker, one high striker, right? Does that make sense? Okay, and then when they move up 2 strikers, our fullbacks are going to come in to be a half a free man, because now the 2 center backs, neither of the center, when they go two central strikers, right, on the our back line, neither center back is a free man now. They're both man marking. So our fullbacks have to each become a half a free man. So I'm reiterating that point. Okay. So now you're seeing the situation we had here was the ball was sideline, right? So we had stepped forward, right? The 10 was not in an advanced position, so not near our back line, right? So you notice the initial positioning of our left center back was as a free man, right? And our right center back had a very aggressive stance. He wasn't goal side. He's looking to intercept a ball played in the air or to feet. He's looking to get that ball first, right? He's looking to jump that route, as they say in American football. So now they're showing that if the ball is played over the top of the 9, the free man can intercept and obviously counter, right? Okay. So that's what they're showing there, which is what Atletico does very well, which we'll be able to do very well as we get better at it, is counter. Something we'll have to work on. Okay. Makes sense? Free man, it's basically free man leads, right? Which you saw a million times, not a million times, but we saw that a lot. We always had, because when we played Leeds defense in the fall, we always had that free man. When a team bombed the ball deep, generally wasn't a problem. That's not why we were getting scored on. When we got scored on, we were always able to generally neutralize that. Just Marcelo or Gavin or T-Ben, when he was back there, was able to just track it down. Okay. I am not going to read this. You guys are going to read this. It's just a review, but it has some interesting nuggets. Again, I want you guys, as time goes by, to study these slides. All right. But I'm not going to read on the recording when you guys can just read it. This is actually an exercise, so this shouldn't even be in here, right? Oh no. Yeah, no, this is not an exercise. So what they're showing here is the transition. Okay. So the ball had started off, if you follow along with this, this was ball side originally. The ball eventually gets here, right? So if you look ball side, and where was the original positioning of the fullback, right? Because this fullback was on ball side, he was right where the beginning of the arrow was, right? But then as the ball gets played to, in this case, they're playing it to a central midfielder, right? So we start to shift, right? The ball gets played here, and then as the long pass comes, by that time, we were able to step and be aggressive, right? Because they're only playing with one striker. So the striker is bracketed. So understand, if Josh is playing left back out there and there's only one striker, he could sneak a peek, like how many strikers are there? He could play extremely aggressive. There could become a time, if there's two strikers, he might have to be careful, because if there's two strikers, that means this is like a 3v3. Just in case this guy doesn't get over, you might hear your center back say, like, just contain, just contain. That's when I might yell. If I was a little nervous that we were overloaded on the back line, to Josh's point earlier, he's like, who decides this? Normally he's going to try to be aggressive, but if he gets called off because they feel like there's too many strikers on the back line, we could tell Josh to contain. But in general, Josh would have already saw that there's only one striker, so he's gonna try to step to the guy and win that ball. Because if Josh loses it, do we have a free man? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we do. So we want our outside backs to be extremely aggressive most of the time, except if there's two strikers. You're going to see later they're going to analyze this as well. When there's those two strikers, you'll see that they're going to tell you to, like, ease off, and that's when Josh could already know that, which will help his decision-making process be faster if he was already looking and scanning. But he could also, to the point Josh made, his center backs could also inform him of that, or his goalie to hold off. Okay. So I think we can go to the board in a second, but this one's interesting. Before we go to the board, this will probably help a little. You can see the movement, right? As the ball gets played, they're showing the movements of the far side right back, how he moves as each pass comes. So you see, like, here it was ball side, and they're not showing anybody else moving, right? They're just going to show these movements. So obviously this guy would move too, but they're not showing that. So you see this made sense, right? Ball side, we're very close, right? We had single high one striker, so we're bracketing him. So the left back could play very aggressive. And then you see the passes made, and he would obviously tuck in a little bit at that moment, right? We talked about this, right? Someone would hope be stepping to him. This is a midfielder, actually. The midfielder makes a nice switch. Okay, but you see after the first pass to the sixth, you see that the right back starting position was here. Let's start with why his starting position was there. Well, why was his starting position there? Well, the ball was here. So what he was doing was if the 10 was up here, he's just there, like keeping an eye, like if our 10 was like, let's say here. He was here keeping an eye on where the 10 was, but he's close enough to the outside mid 7, the white 7, that you'll see that he can get there as the ball gets shifted. So I hope that's making sense, right? He's in that position we talked about earlier where when the ball's on the opposite side, far side, he's just keeping an eye on that 10, because if that 10 comes down, this is now a 2v2, he needs to be there to help, right? Okay. And then as the ball gets played, he starts to move over, okay, a little. And then he's here now. When the 6 has the ball, he's here. So the 6 goes to play that ball, he can step aggressively. And what's coming behind him? If the 9 moves over, what are the 2 center backs doing? They're gonna bracket him. So the right back, if that's Hamza or Jake or whatever, can be extremely aggressive, right? Because we have a free man. We have 2 center backs covering 1 striker. So I hope that's all kind of coming together now a little bit in our heads. And you can see, why don't we look at this? We might not even go to the board with this one. You can see the movements as we go across, okay? The starting positions, right? You can see it started here with the outside back. You can see that the right back was initially very close, ready to cover. Probably in a contained situation because this was a 2v2. So he's probably more like, let me just contain. So I'm going to state that again. That was the situation I was talking about earlier. If he's not going to be too aggressive here, because if the ball was played here when it was on here, and he was originally here, if he gets too aggressive and fails, it's now a 3v2. Count the numbers, right? 7 breaks past the right back. It's now a 3v2. So this is not remember we talked about option 1 is to steal the ball, right? That's number 1 priority if you can. Number 2 is to contain, or no, don't let them turn. This is a situation where you might actually allow number 3, which is just contain him. Like maybe not even, depending on how good the player is that you're facing, maybe not even try to stop him from turning at that point. Like just contain him. So you got to be very careful there. So that's a 2 or 3 situation, step 2 or 3, where you're just, you're definitely not trying to step in front and get burned. But you just, a good fullback will know that I can get on this guy's back and not let him get past me, right? So you can probably do the one where you don't let him turn, but be careful, all right? Does that make sense? Because we're a man down, okay, at that point. All right, but you can see the movement. We're sliding over, and everybody's shifting, of course, right? And we have 2 strikers here, so everybody's shifting, okay? And you've all done this. If you played right and left back and center back, you've done all this. You've done that shifting, okay? All right, so now they're going to get in. I mean, we touched on this earlier, a disadvantage of the fullbacks taking that nice, good starting position to attack the outside mids or wingers, to try to steal the ball, to be very aggressive and steal the ball or not let them turn, like really shut the attack down, right? On the sidelines, because that's what we're giving up. We're setting a trap. There's a disadvantage to that offsetting of the fullback from the center back. And the disadvantage is the huge gap that an attacking midfielder can run through, right? So obviously that's something that we have to account for. We just have to, right? So you're looking at it here, it's a problem, right? So before we get to our game Sunday, you can see that the 10 makes a run, right? And who accounts for him? Well, it's now we're basically in man-to-man coverage, man-to-man coverage, man-to-man coverage. Where's the ball at? Because it's on our right side. Our fullback is up. We're man marking, but maybe like we said, our fullback might have the attitude right now that like he takes a sneak peek behind him and he sees the 10 making a run. So the fullback might be like, okay, I'm not going to try to steal this. that could be too dangerous. But if I can contain them, if I can stop them from turning, I will. If not, I'll just contain. Okay. And so as that ball would be played, we're going to be a little more careful. But we are marking everybody, right? So we still have everybody marked, right? And we still have a free man on his way. The left back is on their way to help, right? So that if something does break down, okay. But and remember, what's our 11 doing? Stopping what ball?
It's on their
A
fullback.
diagonal inside.
Yeah. So if we do our job, if our midfield that we, you guys were at practice, you guys were doing a great job of it. Like, this is that thing we did, right? The workout we did where the outside mid. So we don't. One of the theories of stopping that inside pass is we can get away without having a free man. Okay? Because we're blocking the ball on the ground. And you guys played enough at practice to know that it's extremely difficult to play that ball in the middle, right? If the player's doing their job defensively and taking away the inside diagonal, it's hard to play that ball into the middle, like, you know what I mean, without it getting stolen. So we have, and what's the 8 doing here? The 8 is back, right? The 8 and the 6, okay? They're providing a little support too, okay? As the ball goes to the sideline, the 11 steps out, so they're almost creating a little defensive triangle right here, right? So it's going to be extremely difficult to sit this ball through. Look at this defense. If you guys do this well, it's going to come down here, and then we can kind of trap that guy. And then you have, we'll get to this later, but you'll see at that moment, one of the center mids can kind of come in and help, right? Because if the 11 has the ball, he's not going to be able to play the ball into the space from there, right? It's going to be very difficult. So, because the 8's going to be blocking it, so the 6 can kind of come in. So you're going to see that this is a very secure defense if run correctly. I think it's time to stop and open up the questions, because I think we covered enough that I want to be able to. So let's open it up to questions so we can stop the recording at 8 o'clock, and I will go over afterwards with Mo the 9:10, so he's not clueless. But that'll be after we stop the recording. I'll just go over it real quick. So does anybody have any questions on that? Comments, questions?
In most of these scenarios, it shows the ball on one sideline or the other. If the ball's in the dead center, I assume it's just a balance formation. If it's 2 strikers, and if there's 1 striker, you can be more aggressive.
Let's go back. So here was a ball in the middle. Let's go back to the original, and then I'll show you. So original ball in the middle, 1 striker. In that scenario, we talked about the midfielders are compact, right? So you get this weird scenario where the outside mid would be around here, and the other outside mid would be here. So you get this like offsetting of the fullbacks, right? Because there's only a single high striker. Does that make sense? Does that answer one of the questions, Josh? But that's single high striker, right?
Yep. Yeah, you bracket the center backs and the fullbacks play high.
Play out wider, yep, because that's where they're at. But then as we saw, these are sidelines, we'll skip that. So now you look, if they play more, which a lot of these amateur teams do, and they're probably not going to be able to do it against us if we play Atletico. This is something we're not going to see very often unless they do breach us. Because we're not going to let the ball get to the 6 and get turned. Like every time that happens in a game, I'm going to make a note of that on why it happened. We're gonna talk about that in the tactical. Like that has to be prevented. So, but if that does happen, to answer Josh's question, right? You see now we tuck in more because there's just no reason to be on the other side, right? Okay. And then again, this is what we call the free man, the half a free man, right? Because now that there's 2 high strikers, right? So now it's another scenario where we're not stepping right on their toes because the fullbacks have to become a half a free man. Whereas you remember in Leeds, it was, Bernie, in Leeds, it was Leeds, it was always the center back generally that was the free man. Now the fullbacks are going to become like the half a free man. Okay. And the center backs will also become the free man when there's a single high striker. It'll be the other center back. So it's almost like we're taking turns being the free man. It's a little shared, which is typical of a zone. Okay, so that's another sideline one. So Josh was really concerned with the so you can see here, because he's deep, like not close to our back line, it's just a bracketing and then the offsetting of the far offsetting of the fullbacks. But then as the 10 moves closer, our left and right back and our center backs have an eye on them, and the fullbacks move in to help out the center backs as like a half a free man, and they kind of leave their outside mids or outside or the wingers on the opposing team a little bit more open. Okay, to make sure we don't get beat in the middle. Okay.
I had a follow-up question.
Yep,
When there's
okay.
two strikers or just a high 10 with a 9, and the opposing team's 8 beats our midfield, do the center backs hold their positioning and give them the long shot, or does one of the center backs step and calls the fullback in to cover the 9 or 10?
Let's go over that on that's something we probably have to go over. So let me stop the video so it doesn't end up being too long. So I'm going to stop the video here, and then we'll because I think they're going to cover that as well in the we're going to cover that in slides later. So I'm going to stop the recording. So this was number 3, tactical Atletico number 3. All right, Atletico defense. See you all for part 4.